Hey everybody, it's Chris Naugle, your host of the Real Estate Money School, and welcome back to the show. I've got an incredible person here. Somebody, like, we were just talking offline, and what was so unique is Paul Tompkins, like in my story, are like the same darn stories. Literally, like, we're talking about it, I'm like, wait a second, you did that? Wait, I did that. And it was almost the exact same thing. So we're going to talk to Paul about his journey, about what he did to get up to the amount of flips he's doing now, which is about 50 flips per year. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever done 50 flips a year, but it is enough to pull your hair out. And Paul's got a lot of hair, so he's doing something right. So we're going to talk about that journey. We're going to talk about his business, his success. And Paul, I believe you do it with your wife, correct?
Yes, Kelsey.
Kelsey. So just like me and Larissa, it's Paul and Kelsey. They're, like I said, it's literally like looking in the mirror when we look at our business operations and what we're doing. So we're going to get into that, but let's talk real quick about you. Let's talk about all of your journey to becoming a rebel banker. That journey begins a lot of different ways. It starts with, realizing that you want change and you want to do something different. Then after that, you start seeking out the knowledge you need to basically go out there and have the perfect day, to live your perfect day. But that always comes with a cost, and that cost is you taking action. You actually taking action and making that leap, because without action, without you applying that knowledge and that knowledge that you seeked out, nothing will ever change. So the biggest thing I always tell everybody at this podcast is now is the time to take action. Now is the time to go out there and take that leap. There will never be a better time than right now, because that's the only time that matters, is the now. And one of the things that you could do is you could start with grabbing one of my books. And I give this book away for free. This is the Private Money Guide, where all the money is for all your real estate deals, the solutions to finding the money and how to do it without asking. You can grab a copy of that book for free at moneyschoolrei.com/book, or you can just go to chrisnaugle.com, go to the resources page and click the link, and you can get that book as well as Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. But make sure if you get the book and you read it, you take action on those. So Paul, let's dive right in. Like, tell everybody a little bit about your business right now. What are you doing? What does it look like? Just give us the whole thing.
Well, first off, Chris, man, thank you so much for having me here. I love what you stand for. I love that you just don't keep all that information to yourself. You share it with other people. And I love the take action part. That's what I see newbies or people that want to get into it, they don't take that action. So, hey, thanks for pushing that to everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. A little bit about me. I mean, my journey, it's a crazy one. I have a lot of different things that I've done before. So I'll just kind of walk you through the beginning. And I started probably at 8 years old, just with an entrepreneur heart, right? Just wanting to figure something out. How do I make money? And it was kind of out of necessity, but at the same time, out of a desire. And at 8 years old, there was 8 kids in our family. And my dad was a pastor of a tiny church of like 30 people. So obviously there's no money in that. And my mom, obviously a stay-at-home mom, because there's 8 kids. Like, what do? You can't afford daycare, childcare. So when I was 8 years old, I was like, hey, how can I help the family? How can I make an impact in my family? And it was, I'm going to create my own business. And everybody's like, my brothers are laughing at me, and my sister's like, what are you doing? And I'm getting my crayons out, and I literally made these sheets of paper, 8.5 by 11. I cut it in half, and I wrote Tompkins Enterprise on it. And I put little lines under it, and I'm like, I do painting, I cut tree trims, I mow grass in the winter, I shovel snow, and I started putting them on people's doors, me and my brother, and the journey took off. I mean, my first job was painting fences. I think it took us 3 days. We made $80. And $80 to like an 8-year-old. And this poor lady probably just felt bad, Chris. She was probably like, man, that fence looks terrible. But hey, I got my $80 and the business was going. So I did that for a while. And I just said, hey, man, I can make extra money. And then at 12, I remember having to buy my first pair of sneakers. My mom's like, hey, I can't afford those sneakers. It was those Brooks sneakers. I don't know if you remember them back in the day. And I was like,
sure do.
Like, they're cool. I got to get them. And my mom's like, just can't afford it. And I was like, then I'm going to add a newspaper route. And I started doing newspapers too. And so I had that hunger at a young age. And I understood that if I worked hard, like you're talking about a lot, the money will come, right? If you put the time, you put the energy in. So I learned that at a young age. And then I also had a heart for people. I always had a heart for people, for a legacy, for just a passion to give back. I always had it. I don't know where it came from. I did a lot of outreaches in my community and at my church, and just, it brought me happiness. It brought me joy. And a lot of people think it's money, and money helps things. It helps you fund those passions and those dreams to help people. And I just had a heart for that. And I remember always wanting to be a police officer. And I was like, oh yeah. So I go to apply at 18 years old to find out, hey, to be a state trooper, you got to be 21. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What am I going to do for 3 years? So I joined the United States Marine Corps, right? The next best thing. And I said, hey, I can do this. I can do this for 4 years. I'll get out and then I can become a trooper. And that's what I did. I did my 4 years, served overseas 2.5 years, got out, and I said, okay, it's time to go be a trooper. I became a Florida State Trooper, and I did that. And kind of this is where my real estate journey begins, because I loved it. I loved chasing bad guys. I loved helping people. I loved people's worst mindset, their worst moment in their life. You get to show up and help them. And like that for me was like life changing. And I'm not gonna lie, I drove a fast car. Chris, they gave me a gun and said, go catch bad guys. And I was like, where are they? You know? So it was awesome. So I did that, Chris, for probably 8 years. And about year 5 or 6, I was like, this is awesome. But like, eventually one of those bullets that's flying is going to hit me. And my sergeant used to always say, he's like, you keep hunting for the Boogie Man, he's going to find you one day. And it kind of sat in there. And I was like, you know, you're right. And I just, that entrepreneur thing started kicking in again. And I'm like, listen, I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm working night shift 1 month, day shift the next month. The third month, I have midnight shift where I don't see my family. I mean, 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning. And I'm working nights and weekends every month. And I'm like, there's got to be something better than this. Like, I wasn't created to go work 40 to 60 hours a week just to make ends meet. Like, that's not why I was put on the earth. I don't know what other people believe in, but I believe like we're all here for a reason. We're to make an impact in our community, to make an impact in our family, to change something, to solve a problem in the world. And while I'm out there chasing people, I was having fun, but I wasn't making as much of an impact as I wanted to. So I said, how do I get out of being a state trooper? I still have to make money. I still have a family. I have to make a living. And I started researching. I said, where do most millionaires and billionaires have money, put money, keep money, make money? And real estate just kept popping up. And this was probably 2004. So for me, that's enough. Like, once I know an answer, I don't need to keep researching. I don't need to keep looking. I don't need to explore new avenues. I was in. And it was pretty cool because I was a state trooper. So I'm driving around already. And I'm like, ooh, that's a vacant house. Oh, there's another one, you know? And I'm writing down the addresses. I probably shouldn't have been. Don't tell anybody. But I'm writing down the addresses so I can come back on my off-duty time and check it out. And the passion just kicked in, man. And I don't even really know how I got started. People are like, well, what course did you take? I'm like, what course? In 2004, what course? Like, there was no course. And I just started bits and pieces. And then I remember there was this local guy in Jacksonville, Florida, and he wasn't doing things as I would think, like correct or 100% accurate, ethical. Like, he was just one of those guys, and he was a little shady, but he like knew his stuff about real estate. And I said, hey man, like, teach me. So he taught me for about a year. I said, I'll clean your toilets. I'll dump the trash. I'll take care of the office paperwork. Like, I just want to be there when you have conversations. I want to be there when you're putting a deal together. I want to be there when you're inspecting a property. And I did that for a year. He didn't pay me. And he actually flipped me my first deal. I believe he made, it was either $27,000 or $37,000 flipping me a deal. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you just made that much money on me and you've known me for a year? And that's where I first saw the wholesaling thing kick in. And, you know, I had to swallow it and say, okay, but I'm still going to make 40. So what do I care if he makes his 27 or 37 if I'm going to make 40? And at that very first deal is where I saw that I can make $40,000 in 2 or 3 months. I made that in a year. Chris, like, that's $36,600 is a normal pay for a trooper in Florida. It ain't like New York. I know you're up in New York and you guys like start at like 70 as a trooper. I'm like, oh my, that's like 2.5 of me.
It's all right. I'm sure they give it all back in taxes anyway.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a great point, Chris. I like that. So I just said, okay, I can do this. And I'm passionate about it. And I was doing it in my off time, right? I was still a trooper. And the guy who taught me, he said, hey man, like, stay doing what you're doing. Don't quit your job. I know you want out. I know you just made 40 grand. Stay with it. You got great insurance. You have great benefits. You have a retirement package. You have a cush job. And I didn't want to.
I'm so glad you went there. That's so important. And I want to really, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's very important that we stop and just talk about that. So many people get into a career and they're not happy in their career. They're not happy with their income, but it's the ancillary benefits. You just mentioned that you had good insurance, you had the pension, you had these things, and everybody was telling you, don't give this up. Don't give this up. Like, you've got it made. You've got all these great things, stick it out. But something inside you said, no, I can do more. I can be more. I can have more. And a lot of people stop right there because somebody else tells them how to live their life, because they're telling them how their life is, you know, and it's something that Will Rogers says that was profound to me. Will Rogers said the biggest problem in America is not what people don't know. Just like these people that were telling you, you know, you got these cush benefits and everything else, stick it out. It's not what they don't know. The biggest problem in America is what people think they know that just ain't so. That person that was they weren't trying to stop you from your dreams, but they just don't know how to dream because they never took that leap. You did. And I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people are stuck right there. You know, so this is your journey. This is your journey to success. And a lot of people stop their journey right there. When someone says, no, don't give it up, don't do this. Mine was the same. I was a financial advisor. I was doing some real estate, but when I left that financial advisory firm to go independent, I remember people saying, you're crazy. You're giving up a pension. You're giving up your NILIC. You're giving up your benefits. Like, why would you do that? Like, you're at the top. Sometimes the top for one person is the bottom for another person. Sometimes the top for one person isn't what the other person's perfect day is. And that was you. And I love that. I just had to stop you there. That was important.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And a lot of people, they base that, like, when someone tells me something, I look at where they're at. Like, have you gone to where you're telling me not to go? No. And 99% of the people are like that, right? They'll say, don't do this, don't do this. And you look at their life and they've never even tried. So I agree with you, Chris. I mean, you just gotta, it's your journey. It's your life. You have one shot at it. So, yeah. So the journey just kind of continued from there. You know, I started flipping houses. I was making $300,000 a year part-time. I was still a trooper.
And what year was this in?
This was 2006.
2006. That's when I did my first flip. So you were making 36.6 as a trooper, right? But you had your benefits. And then you started flipping. So your first one, you made more than you made in a whole year as a trooper. But then all of a sudden, just a short couple of years later, you're making 300,000 plus you're still a trooper.
I mean, I made that my second year.
Oh,
I made 300 grand in 05, 06 and 07. I was making 300 grand a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was just, I mean, every deal
part-time.
was part-time. Oh yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Every deal I did was at least 40 to 45,000 profit. And I was selling them almost before the renovation was done. I had a couple. I remember a belly dancer bought one of this crazy belly dancer, like, God bless her heart. But like, she wanted me to do this, this, and this. And I mean, she bought the house before I even had it done. So I just, in my heart, I was like, man, can you imagine if I dedicated 60 hours, 70 hours to this a week?
Well, that's the part I'm thinking. So how many houses were you doing at that point in time? So like, you're making 300 grand, 45. I mean, I should be able to just do the math in my head. So that would be 2, 4, that'd be what? That's 6?
Yeah, I was doing about 6 or 7.
6 or 7.
And then I think in 2007, I got up to 12.
Were you still a trooper?
I was still a trooper.
Okay, let's talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was it like? You're a trooper, so you got a full-time job. Now you're doing 12 flips. So I don't know how many watching this have done flips, but they can be very stressful, especially when you got a bunch of them going. Like, literally, it's organized chaos. It's all it is. Definitely. And everything that can go wrong goes wrong. So what was your life like then, though? Like, what was you're making great money, but what was your lifestyle like? You're doing that many flips and you got a full-time job. Okay. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Terrible. I did the first couple flips myself. Terrible. Like, I am so glad I did, because I learned the value of hiring somebody. I learned the value of time. And like everybody says, you can't get time back. So I learned that right off the bat. I was like, man, I did like 2 or 3 and I was like, I can't do anymore. I can't do volume. I can't succeed. I can't grow, right? We all desire to grow. I couldn't grow at that point. My marriage was falling apart. I was working. I was still doing 40 hours at least, because that's a full-time job, 40 hours with the troopers and probably 40 hours on houses. So I was 80 hours deep, and that's not good when you have to go out and pull people over, do drug busts, do that. Like, you got to be on your game. You can't be tired. You can't be exhausted. I remember hopping in my patrol car just exhausted. So then I was like, hey, I got to learn to build a team. I got to learn to get a rehab crew. And I was really good at analyzing and being strategic. I'm very analytical. I know numbers. I know what flow is. I know how to set up timelines. That's just kind of a gifting, I guess. Maybe it's learned through what I went through, but that helped me succeed and push through. And then 08 came, and boy, it came. Chris is over there. Oh man.
Well, I almost lost it all. I was one payment away from being completely bankrupt in 2000. Well, it would have been 2009 when that happened, but no, I'm sorry. It was 2008 that I hit that wall. Yeah.
Yeah. And we hit it too. I think I had 12 houses going at the time, and we were trying to turn them all into rentals, right? We held them for a little bit. We tried to drop the price, try to sell them. Everybody was scared. Nobody was buying. And I remember that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I got to pay $1,200 to $1,400 a month per house I have out. Let's just say it's 1,000. You got 12. That's $12,000 a month in payments.
Yep.
Oh, I'm a state trooper.
I know, man. Trust me.
So we went through that, and I said, okay, what can I learn through this? A lot of people would have stopped, right? And I did for a period of time, because I was still a state trooper, thank God. And I said, hey, I have to make income. How do I make income? What's a win? How do I pivot, right? Especially in real estate, especially in business. How do I pivot to not go bankrupt, to not do foreclosures, to keep my name, to pay back the people that gave me the money, to do the right thing? And I got a call one day to go be a contractor in Afghanistan. And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, are you crazy? Like, I'm already have a crazy job. Why would I want a crazier job and leave the country? And at that same time, I'm going through a divorce. And a lot of that, I guarantee you, had to do with me flipping houses, full-time job. I had a son at the time. Like, I wasn't managing my time. I was missing games. So for me, like, that was a killer for me. That I didn't realize. I don't know if I wasn't mature enough at that time, or I just never gone through it. But like, all of that was hitting me at the same time. So ended up going through a divorce, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do the Afghanistan job. And I went over as a contractor for a private company that works for the Department of State. And guess how much they were paying me? Like $15,000 a month. And I'm like, that covers all my notes. So like, that was one of the main forces that made me go over there. But I said, hey, I got to do the right thing. I'll turn some into rentals. I'll sell some if I can. And I just worked through that. And it was terrible. It was tough. I was in Afghanistan. I missed my kid, but I had to suffer through that. And a lot of people would have just taken that and said, hey man, this is crazy. I'm out. I'm letting them all go to foreclosure, and walked away and filed bankruptcy. And that's on them. They can do whatever they want. But I knew in my heart, I was like, hey, these people, this bank, this whoever lent me this money, I'm going to repay them their money. I'm going to do what's right, whatever it takes. So I did that. I was over there for 25 months, and it was eye-opening. And you talk about learning a lot from what happened in 08. I learned a lot just being over there, and the sacrifices that it takes. So I learned a lot through that experience. But I came back and did a couple other odds and ends jobs, and started working for my church. I was injured in Afghanistan, and I came back, and I couldn't go back to being a trooper. I had spine surgery and stuff, and I couldn't go back to being a trooper. And my church needed a volunteer. They're like, hey, we need a volunteer to help us with outreaches and stuff. And I was like, that's right up my alley. I love helping people. So I started doing that. And then they asked me to do this, and then they asked me to do that. And then, hey, you want to come on staff? And I'm like, not really. But, you know, if you're going to pay me $60,000 to come help people, it's a great start while I'm healing and all that. So I did that for a period of time. And then I met my wife there at church. And it's a funny story. I say, hey, you know, she was in the Connect Center, and the Connect Center of a church is like where you connect with pastors, and hey, how do I get connected to the church? What are you guys about? And I saw her standing in there. I was like, I need to connect with that girl right there. That's what I'm talking about. She didn't hear me, but I kind of eased my way over to her, and we started talking and hit it off. And I went on a missions trip, came back from the missions trip, and she was hooked. You know, Chris, I got that fishing line out. I was like, come on, baby, come on, wham. And so we started dating, and jumped right into entrepreneurship again. My church was like, hey, we need a venue for our youth to have events where they can stay the night, where they can get out of the church and get out of the city. And my wife and I we always had a passion for kids. So we're like, hey, let's try to find something. And sure enough, we found a $14 million resort near Tallahassee. And I said, let's put this deal together. So we did. We put the deal together. We ended up buying it for $10 million. Or $6 million. Yes. He wanted 10. We got him down to 6 million, haggled him down to 6 million. Our church and another organization partnered up, bought the building, bought the resort. I think it was 644 acres, beautiful building on it. And we started running that for a year. And, churches, they're nonprofits. They don't have that much money. And we were working it. I mean, we were working hard. They had events, they had weddings out there. They had all kinds of different things. And I felt myself get pulled back into working for somebody. You know what I mean? Instead of it being a passion or was working for myself, I felt myself getting pulled back in. And I'm like, oh man, I'm working for the man again. I'm working for that paycheck. And I think at that time I was probably working 70, 80 hours a week. The wife was working probably 55, 60 hours. She was miserable. I was miserable. And I'm like, you know what? I learned from my first marriage, we ain't doing this. And I had a strategy of her exiting and then me waiting another year and exiting. And one day the CEO showed up and says, hey, we're taking the company a different direction. We want to do a drug rehabilitation center. Don't need you anymore. Have us the keys by 5. And it was like devastating. I mean, like, I couldn't believe how well I handled it. He's asking me questions about stuff and I'm answering him, and I should have just got up and walked out. And my wife is just bawling. And I'm like, for some reason, I just had peace about it. And I think it's because in my heart, I knew I shouldn't have been there anyway, right, that I'm called to something else. And she's just bawling. And it just, that's the bottom. We weren't in home anymore, right? We had moved out towards Tallahassee, bought a house out here. And now at the drop of a hat, like someone having a conversation with us, we lost our jobs, 2 jobs, not one. It's not the husband or the wife. We both lost our jobs, $100,000 in income. We can't move back to Jacksonville because we don't have proof of income. Our insurance, we had 14 days left on our health insurance. Like done. Like that was it. See you later. And I was devastated. I was upset. I was mad. How could a church do this to me? How could this? How could that? And I just remember, like in my heart, like stay for 30 days. Don't move for 30 days. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So I talked to one of my pastors at a different church and had a conversation with him and tried to work through all the grief and all the heartache. And I just remember in my heart, I was like, I will never let somebody control my destiny again. And that's like a line like out of that whole story. I was like, I can never let somebody else control what happens to me and my family. That's like people right now, they're with COVID going on. Well, the government, are they going to give me a check? You're expecting the government to take care of your family. And these are the same people that complain about the government,
And the same people that try to stop you from doing what you want to do. And the first people in line to give you advice on what you shouldn't do, because they can't, not even going to go there. It's just not the correct way. Yeah, it does. It gets me really fired up.
Yeah. So we stayed for 30 days and I just kept thinking, I was like, what did I enjoy doing that I made money in? Because I'm all about, we give and give and give and give. And I know the more I make, the more I can give. Mm-hmm. So for me, money is a big deal. Some people are like, oh, you just want money, this and that. And I'm like, you don't understand what you can do. It's an amazing tool that you can use for whatever you want.
I've never met a poor person that put wings on a church. It takes money to help people. It takes money to donate money to causes in churches and rescue centers and everything else. Without money, you're just a drag on yourself. And, and if you're not willing to go out there and make it happen and take that leap and do the things that you are talking about doing, I mean, what are you doing? You're just sitting there waiting for a handout. You are literally a parasite.
You're another number.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be rude about it, but these are times that people need to hear the truth, and the truth freaking hurts. You don't like it? That's fine.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely correct. It's the people that get up and, especially right now, like we need more leaders right now. We need people that are going to be the light in the darkness, and people that do what you just said, that are just sitting there waiting, for someone to, hand them a check or tell them something. And they're the first ones to complain about why things in their life aren't working. Like, no way, man. We don't need more of them people. We need more people that stand up and actually lead the rest of the people through this, because this is going to get rough.
Right. Yeah. And it's coming.
Oh, it's coming. All right.
Yeah. So we basically, my wife and I had a conversation, and I was like, real estate. I said, what do you think about getting back into it? I said, I did it back then. I know what I'm doing. I don't even know how we started it, to be honest with you, Chris. Like, we just jumped in both feet. It was like day 31, and like, we're on. And so that was, I'm trying to think what year that was. Probably about 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And we just went full steam ahead, never looked back, never thought about it again. Stayed where we were living, didn't even move, didn't anything. And we just started flipping houses again and just cranking them, doing 10 at a time, then 12 at a time, then 15 at a time, then 18 at a time. And we just kept growing it and growing. I think October we had 18 going at one time. And just, you know, and that led into funding my rentals, because I know for a fact, like, you have to have your retirement set up. I mean, I could get sick tomorrow. I could fall off a roof. I could drive down the road, get in a car accident. I saw that so many times as a trooper. You never know what tomorrow holds. You don't know what 10 minutes holds. I could have a stroke. And my big thing was always providing for my family if something were to happen to me. Well, you can't do that if you're just fixing and flipping, right? You have to have multiple streams. You have to have something that's paying you while you're not doing anything. So for me, it was real estate. And I said, hey, listen, let's set up a real estate portfolio that we do fix and flips. And then once we gather that much money, we go buy a rental. It's paid off. We keep it. It brings in that check. We don't have to worry about anything. And let's shoot for 70. I think our first number was $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year. We're like, let's get $50,000 a year. We hit that. And I think our plan was like in 3 years, let's hit 50. And it was like 13, 14 months. And I'm like, okay, we need to raise this to 100 grand. And then you just keep raising it, right, Chris? You just keep saying, okay, I'm at 100, because if it's not high enough, you don't have anything to strive for. If you hit 50 and stop, well, that's great. But like, what do you do for the next 20 years? So that's what we did. We're still flipping today. That's our mainstream, but creating a rental portfolio for our retirement, and just kind of keep that growing and keep it growing, because that fuels the legacy. That I have a son, he's married now. We have a grandbaby now. And we want to be able to provide, hey, don't worry about your daughter going to college. It's paid for. If she decides to go, don't worry about it. If she needs this, it's paid for. If you want to go on a family vacation every year, it's paid for. So for us, it was having that financial freedom to make whatever decisions we wanted. Why would I let somebody else tell me what time to be at work? Why would I let somebody else tell me how much money I could make, or how many hours a day I have to work? So for us, it was financial freedom, and then time, energy. I mean, if I want to take off for a week, I can take off for a week and go wherever I want and do whatever I want, and I'm not answering to somebody. So that for me was one of the biggest takeaways from why we did what we did.
Yeah, that's a great story. Now, during this ramp up, like where did you get the money to do these deals? Hard money lenders, private money lenders, banks? Like what does the money piece of this whole thing look like?
Yeah. So I think in 05, 06, I used hard money at first, right? Mm-hmm. I was a state trooper making $36,000 a year. I don't have $200,000 sitting in my bank account for a flip. So I met a local hard money lender in Jacksonville, which I like. I like the face-to-face. I know now there's these big corporations, and they make it really easy for you to do volume. Back then, I just liked the face-to-face. I liked walking into a man's office, handing him a portfolio. He's writing me a check. He gets his payments. Like, I just like that. And I wasn't doing huge volume. So
I still do that. So don't think, I mean, still there.
That's the best form of money and I'll get into how I get other money. But so yeah, I used hard money at first, and I'd make 45 grand. I'd say, put it in a separate account, can't get touched. Because all this for me is extra, right? I'm going to keep living off my 36.6. I'm not going to, okay, I made 40. I'm going to go blow it on a car. I'm going to go do this. Now I did a little bit. When I first started making that money, I'm going to rent a limo this weekend. I'm like, I look back now and I'm like, I rented a limo for what? To go around 10? Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And I think about how much money I did waste for a short period of time. But yeah, so we just, I used hard money at first, and then I just started saving my money. And then after 5 houses, I had 200 grand saved. And I just said, okay, I'm going to fund my own deal now. And then another deal would come, and I started doing 2 or 3 at a time. So my goal was like, buy one, sell it, buy 2. Always kind of try to like add one as I did it, because then it's like going to the gym, right? You feel an extra 5 pounds on and then another 5 pounds on. If you try to sit there and tell somebody in a year they can do 10 houses, they're gonna be like, you're crazy.
Right.
I haven't even done one, Paul. But if you say, okay, let's do one every 3 months, you can do 4. And then I'm telling you, by the end of that year, they'll be doing more than 4 because they're just gonna be passionate about it. So when that started happening, when I started picking up more deals, I actually had a friend of mine that was like, hey, I have some money. I'd love to partner up with you somehow. And he had just partnered up with that shady guy that was teaching me that I had left. And he said, hey man, like, I just gave this guy $100,000 cash. Do you know him? And he told me the guy's name. I was like, yeah, I don't do business with him anymore. I was like, he was teaching me the ropes. I said, some stuff was just a little sketchy. I just gave him $100,000. I said, hop in my truck. And we drove up there, got his $100,000 back. I said, listen, this ain't no contract, no nothing. And the guy just didn't know better. Great heart. And I said, why don't me and you team up? And he's like, let's do it. So he started funding some of my deals. I put my money in, he put his money in. So I started fading out hard money, and I haven't used hard money since then. But those friendships, partnerships, families, close people don't know the power of a group, influence. Like I started doing deals. I had friends coming up to me and be like, hey, I got $100,000 in the bank. Can you give me a 4% return? Done. Yes. I'll even let you hold the mortgage on the note on the house, like to give you comfort, like whatever I could do. So I started hustling with that. And friends like, hey, my grandmother died. She's got $200,000. I just got it in an inheritance. Can I invest it? So I just said, hey, and I just started building it up that way. And now I'm up to probably borrowing $5.4 million a year of other people's money. And I barely have any of my own money involved at all. So it just depends. I know a lot of people are out there. For me, I like buying houses with speed. I don't like a lot of red tape. I don't like fill out these 85 forms, wait 10 days. The house is gone. So for me, having cash on hand, where I could sign a document right now. I can go look at a house at 3:00 today, write an offer on it, and close on it in 3 days. Depending on title, clear title. And my attorneys are great, and they bust it out for me real quick. It just depends if there's any issues with that. But there's a lot of power that comes with that. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I started hard money. I kind of teamed up with a buddy of mine, and then another guy's like, hey man, I got a whole bunch of money too. Let's do this. Just give me a return, a certain percentage. And we're up to 5.4 million in, I think, 3 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's just like, the more you tell your story, the more, I didn't, serve for the country, like you did, but, thank you for your service on that. It's the reason we have the freedom, but, just so many things are the same. I mean, the rise to success, then the fall, and then, how you used money, started with hard money, then went private money, and you're just all that. It's all the same story. The flips, and then the flips, you start thinking, wow, I need cash flow because I don't want to keep transacting, flip after flip. And it's just, it's awesome. What would you say during this entire journey what was your biggest external obstacle that you had to face?
Man. Trying to think. Yeah, I've had a couple. Money was really not one of mine. I've kind of always had that kind of hooked up, lined up. Mm-hmm. Contractors have been one where I can get 7-8 teams going at one time. And I was managing 4 or 5 teams by myself. Not hard. I'm sure if you can do 4 flips at a time, you can do 7 at a time.
That's for sure.
Now, when you start getting 10, 12, that's another level. When I started hitting about 12, I brought a guy on to oversee them for me. And now he's just, hey, every morning from 8 to 9, I'm getting a phone call about each house where we're at. Not every morning, but Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And just kind of, he's my boots on the ground. So I think, but finding quality renovators, quality, like right now, a lot of flips are going on in our communities, a lot of rehabs, a lot of this. So guys are scarce. A lot of them are on building crews and that kind of stuff. So if you're trying to find a tile guy, but I really pour into our teams. And when I see the cream of the crop, I bring them on. I'm like, hey, you stay with me. You never have to worry about quoting another job. You never have to worry about COVID hitting. Like my guys, I could go without a house for 8 weeks and I'd pay them. It doesn't matter. Like they're with me. They're my family. They're my team. I take them fishing. I take them hunting. I take them on trips. They're just, and that's helped me build that team. But that's quality. We do stuff very, very well at Flippin Experts. Like you go in our house, I mean, inspector has a hard time finding something. We're just not a fix and flip, throw something on it, paint and this. Like we're doing it right. So I mean, our average fix and flip's probably 40 to 50 grand easy. So, but that's our name. You know, that's who we are. We deal with the same realtors all the time. They know who we are. The community knows who we are. So probably contractors would probably be one of my.
I'd say that's probably my number one. And even today, after, you know, in our peak, we were doing about, I think we had 22 to 25 houses going at the same time. I don't even know how many crews, too many crews. We had a project manager who was great in the beginning, but he found ways to, you know, juice himself. And that ended, you know, last year when we figured it all out. And it's just always something going on. As you scale, it just brings on more and more challenges, more and more legal problems, just all sorts of stuff happens. Yeah. So if people so today you're mostly doing fix and flip, like how would people see your work? How would people find you? Like what, you know, my audience, if they wanted to seek you out, how would they do that?
Yeah. Just go to Flippin Experts on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, you'll see videos every single day, quick tips, some training stuff, before and afters, just Flippin. There's no G, Flippin Experts. Mm-hmm. And we have a website, flippinexperts.com. They'll see a lot more on social media if they're looking for entertainment, some funny stuff, some pictures, before and afters like that to be inspired. So it's the easiest spot to find it.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time coming on the show today. I mean, it was just, the story's awesome. There's just so many takeaways. I don't even know where to start and where to end, but it was really great. My audience will just eat it up and love it. And, you know, I think the big thing is, you know, like that Will Rogers quote, just don't let people tell you what your life is going to look like. Don't let other people determine your future. And you didn't, you know, you almost did. You almost went down that path, but then you came back, you know, and you realized this just doesn't feel good in my gut. And that's the gut's always going to, you know, get it right. So with that being said, everybody, you know, I hope you enjoyed these takeaways. I hope you enjoyed his story. Paul, just incredible. I mean, I'm literally like, the second we talked before this, I knew it was going to be good. And you didn't disappoint. It was fantastic. So for all of you watching on your journey to becoming a rebel banker, you heard it from Paul. Got to take action. You got to stop listening to people tell you, you know, what to do. And you got to just go and make that leap. Sometimes you're going to fail, but you know, failure is the best education you'll ever get. And the only way to truly fail is to quit. So if you don't quit, you can't fail. That's all there is to it. So everybody, thank you so much for your time, for joining us today. And Paul, thank you for your time. And we will catch you guys on the next episode of the Real Estate Money School. We'll see you then. Awesome.